Hi everyone, this is Ashley with CT and Runa Digitals. I am going to do a tutorial to show you how to use my new podium and gown backdrops in Photoshop. I have open an image that I'm going to use, and I have open a digital that I'm going to use. It's important to note that when you are using digitals, you should really be shooting for that digital, meaning you should have the digital before your photo shoot, and you should be keeping your digital in mind when taking the photo for your digital backdrop. I, however, do not photograph anymore, so I am using an older image with some of the newer backdrops I made, so I'm going to have to do a little bit more tweaking. But like I said, if you shoot for your digitals, you won't have to do as much in post. But I am going to be using a backlit one, so using a backlit image is obviously going to be way easier to use for that. I'm going to go ahead and select all, edit and copy on my image, and then edit and paste, bring it over here into my digital backdrop. Now I'm just going to do a quick size reference here. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure my subject layer is selected, and I'm going to go over to my quick selection tool and select subject up here at the top. Once that selects, it looks pretty good. I'm going to duplicate my layer and create a layer mask, and then I'm going to unlock my background layer, and I'm going to drag it in between those layers there. Okay, so the first thing is there is more light than the backlight coming on to the digital backdrop, so I'm going to have to add a little bit of light to the front of her, but also the fabrics don't match. Okay, so I'm going to try to change the blue in my digital backdrop here, and these images are best used, she has like a lacy gown on here. These images are best used with a solid material, slim gown. That way, again, you're not having to tweak too much or edit too much within your image in post. Okay, so I am going to come over to my adjustment layers here, see what different adjustments I can use to try to get this blue to better match the blue on her gown. So I'm going to, come over to my hue saturation layer. I'm going to select my blues here, and I'm going to bring down the lightness on both my blue and my cyan. And then I'm also going to bring down my saturation just a little bit. And then I'm going to also, I'm going to add a clipping mask right here, so it's only applying to my backdrop layer there. I'm going to re-click there. I'm also going to add, I don't know why there's a clone stamp thing there, must have frozen my Photoshop. I'm going to add a, where is it? I'm going to add a curves too, but I don't want to worry about my contrast right here. Okay, so my contrast, I'm going to add a little bit of contrast to that as well. I'm going to get rid of that curves. I don't actually want that curves right there. So there's a little bit of purple within her gown, so I'm going to go up to my hue saturation again, and I'm going to come over to my blue, and I'm going to slide it a little bit towards purple here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Alright, so now I'm going to come up to my layer mask, and I'm going to take a black brush at 100% opacity, and I'm not going to come all the way up here yet. I'm going to start down here, and I'm just going to get rid of all of this, because obviously the bottom of her dress is now going to be the digital. And then I'm going to slowly, I kind of want her butt to show in this one, and then I'm going to add some shadows. So this looks like a good position right here for the gown. And then I'm going to add a new layer above my subject here, and I'm going to hold down Alt on my keyboard, or you can see when I hold down Alt does this, that's creating a clipping mask. Or you can right click and create clipping mask, and that's just going to make it so it's only applying to your subject here. And then I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. I'm going to go to about 25% opacity, and then I'm going to select a dark part on her leg. And I'm just going to, actually let me take that back. I'm going to select a dark part on the dress. There we go. And then I'm going to just paint in a little bit of shadow on her, and then come down, create another layer above my dress, multiply blending mode. Did I change? Oh, we want that multiply blending mode too. I was wondering why it looked a little off. I never changed the blending mode. And then we're also going to paint on a little bit of shadow on the gown. It's a little bit too much now that I changed the blending mode, so I'm going to bring down the opacity. There we go. That looks perfect. Okay, and then obviously check your subject here and make sure that it didn't cut off any parts of her when we select. That looks pretty good. So as you can see right here, there's a bit of a harsh line. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. So I'm going to come over and just, oh, I want to go back up to 100%, a soft brush here. And I'm just going to gently get rid of that copy and pasted little line right there. Just so everything blends seamlessly. There's kind of one right here too. We don't want that. There's a little bit of couple things on the dress. Oops. I'm going to change my brush to white because I'm now brushing her back in a little bit. There we go. I press X on my keyboard to switch back and forth between my light white and my black brush. A little bit more to brush off over here. Okay, go ahead and zoom out. And that looks good. You could make it, you could bring her down even a little bit more, but remember to keep it kind of realistic, like how long her legs are going to be. So we don't want to bring her all the way like too far down, because then it's going to look like she barely has any legs. And obviously you don't want to put her up way high unless you want to maybe pretend she's on like a box or something underneath the gown. I know that can sometimes be a popular thing to do, but just remember to make it a little bit realistic. Now, this is a very bright backdrop. I'm going to add a little bit more light. There's light coming from the right side on this digital backdrop, so I want to add a little bit of light on the right side of her body here. So I'm going to, you could do a couple of different things. You could just click the layer and use like a mid-tones on like 15% exposure and then just kind of drag on along the front of her body. I do highlights too. And see how that just added, let me go back to my history, some nice light on the front of her. Now the only thing about that is you can't adjust it or brush it off. So if you're wanting to do something a little bit safer, if you're a little bit new to editing, you can go ahead and add a new layer. Actually, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to go over to my adjustments and I'm going to add a curves layer. And it's already created that clipping mask since we're in between a layer that it already created a clipping mask for. And then I'm going to up these curves here. Okay, and then I'm going to press Control or Command if you're on Mac, plus I on my keyboard, and that's going to invert that. And then I'm going to take a soft white brush. And I'm going to just brush along the front of her body. As you can see, that also just added in that nice little boost to the highlights there. Okay, I'm just gonna add a little bit of a dodge to her face there. There, that looks pretty. I'm happy with this. I might add a little bit of curves to her as well. Here, let's create another layer. Or not curves, I'm sorry. Contrast. Up the contrast just a little bit. There we go. Pretty. Okay. And I would be done with this image. Like I said, you won't have to do as much tweaking. This kind of works because she has on a lace gown and it's like a tulle fabric down here. So those go good together. But like I said, it's going to be easiest if you have a solid color fabric, the same color as the digital you're trying to use. But worst case, like this one, you can just add a hue saturation layer and use your eyedropper to kind of select the color of the digital, and then use your hue slider to change it to closest whatever color of the gown is on the subject that you shot. But obviously it's going to be easiest to shoot closest to that. But more so than the color of the gown, the lighting. Make sure that you're shooting, if you're going to be using a backlit image, which most of the digitals in this collection are backlit, make sure you're shooting your subject on a backlit background, because that's going to make your life way easier editing, and it's going to make it look super realistic. There's only a couple in this collection that I think are not backlit, and like this one, this was backlit, plus it had some light coming in, so that's something to pay attention to too. Of course, you can tweak it if it's backlit and add a little bit of highlights in there to make it look like I was shooting with light coming from the right as well, but it's not always that simple. I wanted to add in real quick, actually, before the end of the video, if you are at a loss, you didn't shoot correctly for colors, and you're having a hard time using the hue saturation layer, it is always an option to do a black and white image. So any of the images that you're using as a digital, make it black and white, make your subject black and white, and it still creates a really, really pretty image. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message. If you want more free tutorials like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel to be notified when I add more videos.